Been a little bit of a hiatus from the top 50 countdown of the games in my collection. We're on to the top 10, the cream of the crop, as it were. These are mostly going to be pretty complex games, more geared towards the older teenagers or adults. There might be one in here still that's the kids might enjoy, but these are more for the modern board game crowd. This one is number 10, Star Trek Ascendancy, second Star Trek game on the countdown. This one, well, the last one, Fleet Captains, was a season of Star Trek in the box. It was more focused towards the captains. You may have 2 or 3 ships out. This one is a 4X game, where you are exploring and expanding your empire and exploiting the resources and your discoveries and exterminating your enemies. That's where the 4X's, even though they're E's, but anyway, comes from. So in this game, it is this box. It's a 3-player game, which is unique. It comes with the Klingons, the Federation, and the Romulans in the box. And it's best with 3 plus. I say plus because they are releasing expansions with the different races or factions, space societies in the Star Trek universe. So there's the Ferengi and the Cardassians. I bought the Cardassian expansion. Next year they're coming out with the Vulcans and the Andorians, which I thought was unique. But you can essentially the timeline's kind of if you're familiar with the Star Trek universe, it's very fluid. So it's with this game, so it doesn't really matter. You could put the Vulcans in and the Andorians, and the Federation would essentially become Earth at that point, and you could expand and play it like it was pre-Federation, and go from there, because you can make alliances in this game. So the way the turn works, I should get back. This is a long game. This is an hour per player. So each player is playing one of the factions, an hour plus, because we played a 4-player game and it probably took 5 hours to get through. Difficulty on a scale of 1 to 5 is a 5, and age, like I said at the start, is probably a 16 and up game. So there's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. So the way a turn works is you have 5 commands during your turn, which is essentially an action. But before you get to those, there's a building phase. So there are 3 resources in the game. There's production, which lets you build things. There's research, which lets you upgrade your scientific advancements, which makes your ships better, or you produce more stuff, or you can move faster through space. But the goal, or the final thing, is culture. And the primary use of culture is either building up a planet, so you build a colony there, or getting these Ascendancy tokens. And you get the Ascendancy token by turning in, how many do you have to turn in? I think it's 5. You got to turn in 5 culture to get an Ascendancy token. You get 5 of these, and you win the game. So, yeah, like I said, there's a lot of moving parts. So you do the building phase. You can build starships. You can build, like I said, you can colonize a planet, and then you can start building construction modules or culture modules or scientific stations, depending on the planet type and what's indicated on the system. You can use a that's it, pretty much it. And you can commit to research during the build phase. So you can say, I'm going to try and research this new technology, and you'll randomly draw from your stack of science options. Then there's the command phase where you use the command points that I was talking about. So you can use them to move. So you could say, I'm going to use one to put this ship into warp, and then you can use another one to say, I'm going to take this ship out of warp. So when you put a ship into warp, you roll the die to see how far it is, and the space lane would be 3. So there's different space lanes that are either 2, 3, or 4. And as long as a system is not locked into a second system, it can rotate. So you can adjust the map as you play. So the table really is your boundaries. So I rolled a 3, and then I would flip over the next unexplored token, and oh look, it's a neutron star, which has a hazard rating on it. So then I'd roll a regular die, and it says my ship's going to blow up on it, 3 or better, not safe. I rolled a 1, so my ship's safe. In every turn that it remains there, to have to make that roll. Now, each player has a colony or a civilization tracker that you keep track of your technology on for weaponry and shields, and these fall out unless they're laying flat, which they're supposed to. So you can spend your science to upgrade these as well, and that would help. If your shields were better, it would help you survive the spatial anomalies that you're going to encounter. If it was a system, then I would have flipped over an exploration card, which may show that there's a civilization there already, or there may be an encounter, which is essentially one of the episodes of the TV show, like Orion Trader, or Gamma Quadrant Artifact Dealer, or Guardian of Forever, Encounter at Farpoint, which is the first episode of Next Generation. So yeah, you can form a fleet. So rather than moving one ship at a time, you can have up to 3 fleets out there, and there's fleet cards that if you form a fleet, most of them are just battle groups on one side, which are good for combat. But then the other side, depending on the faction, they may have it adds flavor to that specific faction. So the federations have science, and says when this fleet braves a hazard, only roll for one of its ships, so you wouldn't lose the whole fleet. And then diplomatic, when you may re-roll your hegemony roll, so you can use hegemony as one of your actions or commands, spending 2 of your culture to convince a civilization that you may have discovered on a planet to join your faction. Rather than the other way to do it is to essentially beat them into submission, which the Klingons like to do. And then colonization is the 3rd Federation fleet, and that helps you. On your turn, you may discard a ship from the fleet and disband this fleet to colonize an undeveloped system without spending a culture. So if you have this fleet, you're just essentially spending command points, building a fleet, and saving your culture, which you need to build the Ascendancy tokens. This game feels Star Trek, and there's a lot of big 4X space games out there. This is my favorite of the bunch, but I am a pretty big Star Trek fan, so that has a big part to do with it. There is also a Borg expansion, and the Borg can be run without a player, so they'll be floating out there in space, or there's essentially a transwarp hub as one of these that'll show up, and then the Borg enter play, and they'll randomly go after one of the players, and you can either lie and try and beat the Borg, or let the Borg take out that player, and then you're really in trouble. But maybe if you're close, you're going to let that happen, and you may get your 5 Ascendancy tokens before the Borg get too powerful. So it kind of turns it into a co-op game or a semi-cooperative game. Yeah, there's a lot going to this game, but I've enjoyed it every time I played it. So that's my number 10, Star Trek Ascendancy. Stay tuned for number 9 for the kids.